The year is 1983, and director Alan Arkish was looking for Hollywood redemption after financial and critical failure of his sci-fi robot comedy, Heartbeeps. Looking to recapture the energy of his earlier film, the now cult classic Rock and Roll High School, he would embark on a journey to weave a tale based on his experiences as a stage man at the famous Fillmore Theater East, and bring to the world the chaotic rock and roll fever dream that is Get Crazy. However, due to some dastardly producers straight out of a Mel Brooks movie, the film was sunk before it even took off in order to collect on the insurance that the investors had taken out on it. For nearly 40 years, the film has become a thing of legend, a cult classic that was hard to see and even harder to understand. Tonight, my guest Galen Howard and I are about to get crazy.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Well, Galen, welcome back to the show. It's been a couple years since we did our Halloween specials about horror, anthology movies, and now we're here to talk about Get Crazy. But before we do that, how are you? How have you been?
Been good. I think we can do full disclosure and said this is our first time, our second episode, but also second attempt at this episode. After some connectivity issues. I won't say who. A couple weeks ago.
I'm gonna blame solar flares. You know, I'm gonna blame Starlink, Skynet, whatever. It wasn't my fault, I promise.
No, exactly. Same. But I'm excited for our valiant second attempt, which is so far is going great, and and of course, it's super excited to now have a full conversation of this just incomparable movie, Get Crazy.
You know, and I am the cult-worthy. I dig up cult films, and one of the things I like about this movie is that it has its fans that are like the higher echelon, you know. Eli Roth is a huge fan, and he's hosted it at the New Beverly, right?
Yeah, he does, and for those with the Kino, the wonderful, majestic Kino Lorber release, he is on the commentary, guest host on the commentary.
He's on the commentary. They got the man himself, Alan Arkish, to do like his own little documentary on it, and
they do a little like Zoom pandemic little chat with a lot of the folks on there. Yeah, for fans of the movie, it's must have, absolutely.
I always call this film a litmus test these days for me because I've seen it. I saw it a long time ago, and it was like on Cinemax or Encore, and it was that terrible cropped 4:3 VHS version that was like the only way people could see it for years. And I always tell people, like, if you liked Rock and Roll High School and you like that kind of manic energy, you'll like this movie. Or it's just not for you, and that's fine. But one of the things I have to say about this movie, man, is that I miss this style of filmmaking, and I miss the daringness of studios, good or bad, to allow filmmakers like Alan Arkish and even like Joe Dante back in the day to just make movies like this and get them in front of people, because we don't see this kind of daringness anymore. What do you think?
If the idea of a combination of like this is Spinal Tap minus the documentary perspective and like and say like Top Secret is your idea of a good time, then so is this.
Like Zaz movies. They don't even really make Zaz movies anymore.
That's right. Abram Zucker stuff. Yeah, it's totally has that like Abram Zucker quality. With that kind of satire of the rock music industry. Like a This is Spinal Tap.
Exactly. but with also like some really great recording artists involved as well.
Terrific. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you get like, cream of the crop with a lot with just again like just tons of, inside baseball jokes and gags and stuff, and it's a romp, from start to finish.
And I love that it is sort of a hybrid film, because you do
Mhm,
have
mhm.
we kind of mentioned it in the last episode where it's like a sketch comedy that's just been stretched out for about 90 minutes with a concert film right in the middle. I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of like gag vignette based, like some of those narrative like Abrams Zucker stuff.
Colorful characters,
Mhm.
great like improvisational actors. We're going to talk about them in detail a little bit, but Alan Garfield, like one of the best
Terrific.
just
Yeah.
comedic
R.I.P.
performers,
Yeah. Yeah.
RAP,
Fantastic.
bringing that kind of energy to it. And one of the things too I've always said about this movie, after I discovered it years ago, is when people talk about James Bobbin's The Muppet Movie from 2011, I was like,
Oh
guys,
yeah. Oh yes.
it's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of like Get Crazy. We've got the industrialists trying to take over the theater, and the
Mhm.
theater owner has to get the old bands back together and try and save the day and overcome the evil industrialist. It's practically
Right.
the same plot, not as
Also a plot that was, for better or worse, basically aped by another Disney movie, The Country Bears.
absolutely. You got Christopher Walken in that
Christopher
one.
Walken, yeah, it's
You
all
got Chris
all the
Cooper in
music
the
cameos,
Muppets.
yeah, getting the yeah. I mean, I think those that and Muppet Movie are more are a little more linked because you've got like the fan helping them get back to helping link one particular band back together, but this is certainly the I would like to think the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, even in some points, I feel like there's some like I Love Lucy energy in there too,
Sure. Yeah.
masquerading to kind of get behind the scenes, sneak into the concert. Yeah, there's just so much reverence in the fact that Alan Arkish, he loves comedy and he loves zaniness, and he's making a live action cartoon here. Like this may as well be like a Looney Tune. There's Wile E. Coyote stuff. There's Acme stuff. There's a lot of great stuff, but it's
Yeah,
made
the
for
explosions, the pratfalls, the other kind of sight gags, it all kind of hails back to that.
And like I already said, the Muppet movie from 2011, but I think it also has a lot of that Muppet show energy too. We're putting on a production. There's someone who's trying to take over. There's a lot of sight gags. A dog gets kicked across the theater. Like
Right.
that's one of the things I just love about Arkish is I find it hard to think of more enthusiastic, energetic, but also unapologetic filmmakers who knew what they wanted to make and they really stuck to their guns on that one. Being a Corman graduate really kind of
Yeah.
gives you that energy, right? Like him and Joe Dante making some of those films together in the 70s.
Exactly. What was it?
Hollywood Boulevard. Absolutely, which feels the same way. You got Paul Bartel in that one. You've got the crew in there.
Right. He has he always like brings his buddies along, like him and Mary Warnoff.
Mary Warnoff, who's in this film too.
Using them brilliantly in Rock and Roll High School, and then great little cameos in this one. Like, yeah, it's just that revolving cast of characters, and then of course some great comedy actors, and folks from the music industry. Like, just it's a cavalcade of great names.
One thing with Arkish too is the fact that I feel like as a filmmaker, do you really think that sometimes I think sometimes you can walk into cult film legacy like John Waters or Paul Bartel kind of did, right? Arkish, he
Sure.
had more tastes of the industry, and from all accounts, he didn't like it, Getting to do Caddyshack 2 seemed like a really big deal. And at the end of the day, it was a financial failure, kind of tanked his career for a bit. But
Yeah,
I
sure did.
can't not enjoy and laugh at the true arkish moments in Caddyshack 2. Like, you can tell what is his, and you can tell what the studio wanted in a Caddyshack sequel. You know, like Dan Aykroyd filling in for Bill Murray. It's fine. It's funny. It's Dan Aykroyd. But the real moments are the arkish moments. Yeah.
Yeah, there are those moments. Yeah, they're the pure arkish moments. There are the studio crafted moments that you can still see a bit of that arkish spirit underneath. You know?
With Rock and Roll High School, really kind of putting that energy out there, saying, this is me, this is what kind of movie I make, this is the madcap punk rock filmmaking, right? You got the Ramones. It is punk rock filmmaking. With this one, I think he takes that punk rock energy and in his own way tries to make it semi-autobiographical of his time from the Fillmore East.
And trying to heighten it even further.
Right. Like almost as if, okay, so we know that it wasn't as zany as this film, but introducing the crazy characters, for example, the metaphysical drug dealer, Electric Larry, bringing in his assortment of goodies, turning the Fillmore East stand in the Saturn Theater into what I feel Arkish wished it was, you know, and being able to show you the egotistical musicians backstage with the crazy requests and the orgies in the closets and that kind of stuff, but being able to bring his energy and his particular point of view of farce and satire and sketch to it. It really is a thing of its own.
Bring that kind of farcical cinematic hyperbole to his own experience.
Absolutely. So let's kind of just dig through the characters first, because it's really hard
100%.
to explain this movie beat by beat. I think the best way to do it is with the characters, because they're the ones that kind of bring you through the chapters of what this movie represents.
Totally.
So the first character that we bring in is Max. He is played by Alan Garfield, credited as Alan Goritz. I love this dude from Putney Swope. He's the bad guy in Bustin'. He just is a Skateboard the movie with Leif Garrett. He does bring like a very almost like paternal feel to the movie, where this is the guy who runs this theater that all the bands have known and loved for years, but he is kind of getting long in the tooth, but he doesn't want to give up control. It's I'm not going to say it's stereotypical theater manager, because it's him doing it, and the way he does it makes this guy likable and not like the kind of like evil producers we see in movies about putting on a show or putting on a Broadway production.
Alan Garfield is terrific. He's just, he's that kind. It's great to see him in this kind of role, because he is he was an actor who could easily and did often play more of the more kind of the slimy huckster, more of the wheeler dealer, that kind of energy. He is, at the end of the day, the guy who isn't going to give in to the young up and coming bigwigs, wanting to take over the establishment. He's the one who is going to fight for the love of the love of the theater, or the love of the concert hall, who ultimately cares about his patrons, and really about what the theater means. He does have that genuine energy and heart, so much heart that it is compromising his health.
I feel like somehow there's a little bit of an analogy for Roger Corman in that role, where it's like, we're talking about a producer who's not out to make a fortune. It's a guy who loves to create so much that he just wants to make enough money to keep creating. He doesn't want a big, huge theater like Ed Begley Jr. does. He just wants to be able to keep on putting shows and more shows and more shows and keep the show going.
Yeah. I mean, he will give people opportunity, and he will like overwork people, and he will take to the degree he has to take. I mean, it reminds me of like an old theater stage theater manager that I did did plays with back up north years ago, and he would always like kind of, take people under, quote unquote, under his wing and let them kind of run free in the theater. And like, he would always kind of say, like, his line was always like, "I'll exploit you as long as you let me."
Right, because you're going to learn a lot more than if you take the.
You're going to learn a lot more. You're going to get opportunity, and I will reap the benefits of it. I will get free work from you, but you're also going to get opportunity. But it is that kind of honesty. I think that's the thing. It's like that, bringing that that honesty to that kind of huckster character, the one who is like, yeah, I'm going to use you and take advantage of you, but I'm going to tell you I'm doing it. I'm not going to be the big tycoons, the big Ed Begley Jr. tycoons who say they have your best interest while stabbing you in the back.
Right.
He's gonna tell you exactly how much he's going to screw you over.
And you get to see the results of that because we have our two secondary characters. We have Willie Loman, played by Gale Edwards, who was his previous stage manager, who he mentored into a much larger position, working for Ed Begley Jr.'s Colin Beverly, who is the industrialist whose theater got purchased and then she was out of a job.
That's so funny. Yeah. I think the first time I saw this, I did. It took me a while to realize that was her character. At first I thought he was referencing Death of a Salesman, talking about himself.
Willie Loman, yeah, right.
Like, because he is, he does. He is a little bit of a Willie Loman character.
Absolutely, he is.
That's so. But it's so. Yeah, and it's so. It's so funny that they have one of his proteges literally named Willie Loman.
Willie Loman. Yeah, it's such a wink to like the theater people.
Oh yeah, clearly. Yeah.
And then essentially like filling in for Arkish himself is Daniel Stern, and he plays Neil. And if you've ever looked at these guys side by side back in like 1982 when this movie was being made.
Right, when he made the movie. Yeah, exactly.
They look exactly the same. And you can...
Right, he was literally looking for like a surrogate.
When I was watching the special features, Daniel Stern even said, he's like, okay, I didn't know what I was going in to read for. And I got the script, and then I look up and I see who's, watching the audition. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I'm fucking playing this guy.
It's like, oh, yeah, duh. Yeah.
Duh, it makes sense.
Don't need to think too hard about that. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah.
Neil is the new stage manager of the Saturn, and this is his first New Year's festival. And the New Year's is when they bring all these bands together. It's the biggest show of the year. It's the most successful show of the year. It's almost as if like every show that leads up to this makes enough money to keep the theater in business. But this is the show that sets it up for the next year, that continues its longevity. And
right. It's as if you're working for Dick Clark and then have to do New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Exactly. 4 people essentially stand in the way of the success of this show and the future of the Saturn Theater. And first of all, that is Colin Beverly, played by Ed Begley Jr., played to Ed Begley Jr. perfection. Like, this is the kind of role that's meant for him, right?
With that silver lame flight suit and...
Right.
Incredible stuff.
2 henchmen, played by Fabian and Bobby Sherman. So now this is our throwback to like the 60s beach heartthrobs.
Yes. Yeah. Those are the kind of like inside baseball Easter eggs that are just, just plugged throughout this movie.
Well, it's funny because I grew up watching Back to the Beach. The Frankie and Annette movie, which is full of 60s and 70s heartthrobs and beach musicians and stuff like that too.
Yeah, character actor cameos, like
exactly.
Just every scene.
So I always thought that was like a huge wink and a nod. This one might be even bigger because those wink and nods are pretty specific. Like, you really have to know your 60s heartthrobs to understand the irony of having them as the henchmen of this industrialist.
It's not like Back to the Beach where you just literally have like Alan Hale and Bob Denver.
Right.
It's like you have to kind of know your stuff.
Now we get into my favorite part of the movie, and that is bringing in the musicians for this event.
Oh yeah, the best.
The best.
Part. Yeah.
So we bring in Bill Henderson as King Blues, who's kind of like a stand-in for like a Muddy Waters type character.
Like a Muddy Waters, maybe a bit of BB King, like
little
that
BB
kind
King
of thing.
in there.
Yeah, but definitely but definitely old school, like, that old, Muddy Waters, like Electric Mud era kind of, yeah.
Bill Henderson, most people would probably know him as the cop in Clue. He's Casper Lindley in Buckaroo Banzai. But I watched it last week and I totally forgot that he is the dentist dad in City Slickers.
That's right.
I was like, oh my God, it's Bill Henderson. I forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Another, I mean, definitely like another that guy, another, another great character actor and just, guy who just makes it look all so effortless.
It creates one of the best running jokes in the movie, too, where he comes out and he sings his version of Hoochie Coochie Man, only to find out that like every single performer after him has their own rendition of Hoochie Coochie Man.
Yes. Right. His signature song has become so ubiquitous that everyone is doing it.
Right. And it takes me back to the first time I saw Mighty Wind in the theater, and the New Main Street Players open up with Wandrin', which was the song that Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and Christopher Guest were supposed to open up with. And they're like, they just opened up with our song. Well, how about we just be daring and open up with our song? And I was like, did they bite that joke from Hoochie Coochie Man and get crazy?
I know. Yeah, but it's such a great bit, and they don't necessarily hammer it home. It's just something you kind of have to be watching for.
Right.
But it's great. Yeah.
Next we get Captain Cloud, played by Howard Galen of Turtles fame.
Yes.
And he's got his Rainbow Telegraph Band. They show up in like their psychedelic bus. They're kind of like a stand-in, I'd say, for like a Grateful Dead / Strawberry Alarm Clock type of thing.
Yeah, definitely like aging psychedelic band. Kind of has a little bit of like the Woodstock MC Wavy Gravy.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of that energy going on. But where it's kind of like cult energy he's got going on. It's like half a band, half like a way of life.
Right. It's like the family, but not as
the family,
devious.
Right? But a much lighter, more positive version of that. Yeah.
And since I'm like the punk rock guy, when they bring in the fictional band Nada, which to me, I think is supposed to be like a play of maybe like a combination of X and the Go-Go's, right? It's an all-girl punk band.
Yes.
But with...
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, it was... like X-Ray Specs, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that was the main like all-girl punk band at the time. But like, that kind of energy.
But how about you talk about the person they bring along with them in the trunk of their car? Because it might be my favorite part of this movie.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, Fear is only Ving, as Piggy. Their band member / attack animal, who is constantly abusing himself as his own form of as his own attack weapon. I love Fear. I love Lee Ving. And it's always great to see him pop up in movies, whether it's like the Alex Cox movies or speaking of Clue, a lot of people know him as Mr. Body from Clue, probably one of his most reserved performances. But he's great as one of the villains in Penelope Spheris' Dudes.
Yep.
And it's just great to see him in, pure Lee Ving fashion here.
I think it's also hilarious. I was watching Flashdance a while ago, and he's got a cameo as one of like the creepers on the corner who like catcalls her.
Funny.
And I was like, oh shit, it's Lee Ving. He's like doing like a Joe Strummer in King of Comedy, where he's like walking by and you just barely see him for a second. Yeah, well, I think he's like trying to channel like a lot of the G.G. Allen energy too. Like that's the thing where I'm trying to go for
100%. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I didn't realize this until I was like watching more documentaries on him and other things. Like he was completely dubbed in Clue, but he's using his own voice in this, and it's very recognizable as his voice. Yeah, I got to see.
I have to go back and watch that. That's so interesting.
I got to see Fear and Leaving last summer at the Punk Rock Bowling in Vegas. And it was just great because, I mean, he's just in his black shirt, black pants, all frail, but he still starts every song with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just snaps his fingers. Fantastic. Just as much energy
amazing.
Confined into one space.
Incredible.
No, I love Nada. And I think that might be my favorite song of the movie, just because it's really catchy and really poppy, but it's still got that punk rock sensibility. And then he jumps right into his punk rock version of Hoochie Coochie Man with one of the most entertaining parts of the movie, which is the balcony dive segment, where classic Zaz, right? You've got everybody from the doctor to the dude dressed up as a giant joint, just throwing them off of the balcony. Great moment. We can't skip one of the most iconic performances from an iconic actor, and ask most people, they won't know that he is in this movie or that he plays just an amazing rendition of a 70s glam rock star. And that is Malcolm McDowell as Reggie Wanker.
Yes. You could kind of say it's, effectively like a hybrid of Mick Jagger and David Bowie.
That's what I would guess too, right?
Yeah, though I'm sure you could argue there's bits of like there's bits of Mark Bolan and early David Johansen in there. It's lots of different. It's definitely a composite, but I think that's kind of the easiest way to describe it.
I'd say maybe even a tiny bit of the flamboyancy of Freddie Mercury in like the late 70s, early 80s, especially with like the boa and stuff like that. But
100%, yeah.
Malcolm McDowell, one of my favorite actors of all time, because he literally can play anything. He can do comedy, he can do drama, he can do horror, he does it all. And nothing makes me happier when I see Malcolm McDowell have a good time in a film. And you can tell he's having a riot in this one.
It's his joy of the character that, can elevate even the, even the lowest of jobs that he would take on kind of in that era, 80s, 90s, Yeah, not nearly at his height, but, he's still like, taking major studio films and that sort of thing. So it's so great to see him take on a part like this. I think this was like right after Cat People
and Blue Thunder.
Yeah.
And like there's even a Blue Thunder joke in there too that was totally improvised, and I think it's hilarious because Daniel Stern and he were in Blue Thunder together. And Daniel Stern's character got killed off by his guys. And so there's a moment when he turns to him on stage, he's all, "Check you later." So for those who know Blue Thunder, it's a good inside joke.
Good. I didn't even clock that. That's great.
He's got a great story on that documentary on the Blu-ray about how he even got into this film, because he was going to take some time off. He bought a house in Malibu. He was going to take some time off, maybe do some theater. And his agent called. It's like, "Hey, Alan Arkish is this kid. He's making this movie. And he really wants you to play like a Mick Jagger type character, like a rock star." And he read the script. He's like, "Well, I don't understand it. So ask for too much money. Say, this is my price." And they'll probably just, go for the next guy. But then like 3 days later, they called him back and said, "Okay, we'll pay you this much money. Can you start on Wednesday?" And he's like, "Well, shit, that's a lot of money." So he just went and almost went in cold, went in raw. Didn't have anything memorized. He just went there, did it all like in that week that he was there, because, hey, he told them he'd do it if they paid him this much money, and they said yes. And
that's, yeah. There's, I mean, there's There are so many stories of that exact scenario, just tanking a film.
Right.
Of an actor who basically, you know, overprices their way into a movie, doesn't expect to get in, then basically then is there the most paid member on set and doesn't want to be there, and and just kills the energy of the movie. But I think it's because he's Malcolm McDowell, he showed up completely game and just fucking kills it.
I mean, the dude's got like 200 plus credits in his IMDb. And just like Nicolas Cage, I'd say that this is a man who, regardless of what film he's in, never phones it in. Like, he brings the A game to pretty much every project he's in. Because we've seen those performances where it's like, oh, he's here for a day. He's here to shoot, one scene. Malcolm McDowell, I've seen some dog shit productions, but he brings his A game every single time.
Yeah.
And there's a
maybe less so in like the last maybe 10-15 years.
Yeah, but then there's he's not been in a lot in the last 10-15 years.
No, exactly.
even
especially in that like 80s to early 2000s era, like I think you can count on, like, he's a be it like this or like Tank Girl or what have you.
Yeah, great villain. Even
terrific.
Even goddamn Wing Commander, those old PC games where you were like flying through space and he was the bad guy in that. It's like, dude, I'm watching an FMV scene on a video game and Malcolm McDowell's bringing his A game. Mark Hamill too. So, they really made their stamp in the 80s and 90s in those games.
Absolutely.
Reggie Wanker, first of all, great name. Great character, great performance. And I love how he's like peppered through the movie. For example, Susie, the little sister, she's got a Reggie Wanker poster on her wall. And while she's on the phone with her friend, like, you see his eyes like follow her as she's walking around the room. Just little sight gags like that, man. It kills me. It's so good. And then one of the best jokes of the movie, in my opinion, is that the end, after he's been tripped out by Electric Larry's water cooler, he has a philosophical conversation with his penis, who eventually becomes his business manager.
Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, if that's not an analogy for, the careers of most rock musicians,
Right.
Knowing who's exactly in the driver's seat, I mean, that's it's so great.
Before we get to what I call the New World Picture players, there's one last cameo of this film that, for me, being such a fan and wishing
I know where we know where this is going. Yeah,
you bring it. You're the guest.
well, I mean, it can only be the one of the best casting and one of the best casting choices, in my opinion, of the film is having the Bob Dylan surrogate played by none other than Lou Reed,
who's great, because like he's just bringing Lou Reed energy.
He's just being himself, and it's like, it's of course it's so perfect because of, given his his influence from Bob Dylan. Like Lou Reed was someone who started out in like little like 50s rock bands,
right?
These little kind of like Gene Vincent-y kind of rock bands in this early 60s, seeing where his songwriting took him into, like on those first couple Velvet Underground albums, and then his solo work. I mean, his you don't even need to read an interview with him to know the influence he took from Bob Dylan. So to see him basically, again, just kind of playing himself, but as the Bob Dylan surrogate is just absolutely brilliant casting.
I've always been baffled by the fact that we've never really seen a sketch show like Saturday Night Live or Mad TV or any of these other ones try to do like an impersonation of Lou Reed. You don't see it. You don't see a lot of Lou Reed mimics and mimes. Like, well, you'll see a lot of Sinatra's. You'll see what's the one? I mean, Joe Piscopo did Bruce Springsteen too. Like, you see a lot of those. Lou Reed feels like it should have been like ripe for parody, but maybe it's the respect for the guy.
I guess, yeah, because he is right, yeah, because his his delivery is is very very singular. Like those. I mean, from the first breath who that it's Lou Reed.
Right. Like, eyes closed, it's Lou Reed. I would listen to Lou Reed read the phone book. Like, there's just something so
100%.
soothing about that voice and his line delivery. A deathbed request. A deathbed request. It's so good.
Yeah, you can totally imagine like that was their first and only take.
Exactly.
All they needed was that. It's like, yeah, you got it. That's it.
The running joke being that he's not that far away from the theater, but he tells the cabbie to take the scenic route so he can finish writing the Max Wolfe's deathbed request song. And it takes him all day and through the show. And then he shows up at the end after the show's over and does like a one-person concert for Susie, who's waiting to see him.
Just
it's
perfect.
So great. And that's why the closing credits roll. Oh my God.
Yeah, spoiler is what is what the end credits play over in just a perfect perfect ending, perfect closing of the film.
And so now the new World Pictures players, we got Paul Bartel as the doctor,
of course,
comes in to make sure that Max didn't have a heart attack. He just actually had indigestion from eating too many chili dogs. Great joke.
Yeah.
You can't have Paul without Mary Warrenov as Violetta, the lighting engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Clint Howard, very minuscule role, but memorable nonetheless, as the usher. Special mention to the giant walking, talking marijuana joint, which I can't believe I haven't seen that on more t-shirts. Like, that seems to be ripe for merchandising.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Honorable mention to Jackie Joseph and Dick Miller showing up as Susie and Neil's parents.
Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then extra honorable mention to Joe Dante regular Robert Picardo as Connell, the fire inspector.
Of course.
Which is such like a Muppet character. Like, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, that should have been like a Muppet movie character. The guy who threatens to shut down the theater if they have any fireworks, if they have any pyrotechnics, and then he gets dosed later on, and it's just hilarious. I love Robert Picardo.
Incredible character actor. Yeah, all those all those great Joe Dante movies. He was of course, known to the kind of the nerdcore audience for his turns in the Star Trek world, but for me it's all those great Joe Dante movies.
And not a lot of people know this, but he was also Meg Mucklebones in Legend, directed by Ridley Scott, the Swamp Witch.
Right.
So that was actually a man, and it was Robert Picardo doing excellent work and frightening children of the 80s.
And another one people may overlook is he was, of course, the iconic voice of Johnny Cab in Total Recall.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Undeniable. His voice in that. Yeah.
So we covered the characters of the movie. I say you have to watch the movie to understand all the inner workings and how these characters connect and how the fabric of the movie kind of brings you into this arkish land that's just fantastic. Let's talk for a second about kind of like the travesty of how this was handled theatrically and why it is essentially a lost movie up until the last several years.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I mean, just for my discovery of it, it was, it was years before I knew, knew why it was lost. But this was, one of those movies that was, you could only the most expansive and deepest of video stores, and it was one that eluded me for years. It was one I think before the days of the internet, I read about in one of like the Leonard Maltin guides, and as soon as I read the the synopsis, I was like, oh, this is something I have to see.
Where can I find it?
Where can I find it? And you couldn't find it anywhere. There wasn't. Yeah, it was before the days, of the internet and eBay and YouTube and all the ways that you find these like hard to find films. And so yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was. I saw like the VHS dub on YouTube, years ago, and that was my first discovery of it. But I know Alan Arkish wasn't necessarily forward about his experience with it until more recently. But yeah, I got to hear him talk about it live at a screening of it, like a kind of a an approximate anniversary screening earlier this year at the American Cinematheque, and talked about his experience with the producers, calling them horse thieves. And they basically assessed the sunk costs of it, and not unlike Coyote v. Acme and
Warner Brothers,
the Toxic Avenger remake,
and the Batgirl movie. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Warner Brothers essentially doing that, where they are essentially canceling these movies and writing them off as tax shelters, and that's kind of what they did with Get Crazy.
100%.
And Embassy Home Video, they released the VHS. It was the only home video version, which is the version that most of us saw. And it wasn't even like a pan and scan. They just essentially just cropped the anamorphic negative.
They just cropped it, yeah.
And that's the version I saw way back in the day on Cinemax or Encore, whatever it was. And that's the version on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, like I said, God bless Kino Lorber, because when that Blu-ray was announced, I pre-ordered it, got it, and I screened it in like my little projection room downstairs for a bunch of people who had never even heard of it. And it was like experiencing it for the first time, because I'm seeing the full frame. I'm seeing all those beautiful, brilliant colors that for all those years watching it on YouTube, just green and fuzzy and I don't know how many generations duped off of VHS.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
This remastering is it's absolutely gorgeous. I was able to see that on the big screen, recently, which was incredible. But yeah, having that DVD, that Blu-ray, finally you get to see the film as intended, because it never, it went. Did it go straight to video? Did it even get a theatrical release?
From what I heard, it had like a few screenings, like preview screenings and test screenings, but it never had
an actual theatrical run.
Correct. It went straight to home video and then would show up on like whatever cable station, or Cinemax Encore. I don't know who else would play it. Joe Bob Briggs, maybe. I don't know. Like it was right. Literally like a lost movie for decades. And now we have it again, and people can discover Reggie Wanker for themselves. And also, like, I encourage people, A, watch this movie, but B, go watch Alan Arkish's Trailers from Hell on it. Go watch the documentary on the Blu-ray. I mean, Arkish is great on Trailers from Hell anyway, but to hear him talk about his own projects, I think is so enlightening, because there's no ego behind it, and he's not trying to paint a horse a different color. He's like, this is what it was like for me trying to make something different in this era of, we're right before the blockbuster era. We're now Ghostbusters is big in 84 and everything else has to be Ghostbusters or Beverly Hills Cop. And movies like this just did not get any play, and they did not get any appreciation or the chance to be produced. So this is one of I'm going to say the nails in the coffin of these kind of quirky, avant-garde, original thought pieces before we really got into the world of blockbuster cinema.
Went on, to pay the bills as a hired gun in episodic and made for TV movies.
Right.
Been able to continue working as a director for many years since then. But this was one of the last times we got to really see, really witness his his kind of creative genius. Fully, fully tapped, fully unmitigated.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite movies. It's a New Year's tradition for me. Like, I play
Oh,
four rooms.
yeah.
I play
Yeah.
4 rooms in this back to back every New Year's. It's my
Mm.
double feature for my friends and for my film club, and I don't
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't see myself ever stopping.
That's a good one. Going obvious. I usually have New Year's Evil in there.
Right.
With one of the which boasts one of the best, I think one of the best horror theme songs of all time. But yeah, those two are, that's a great double feature.
That's funny because I forgot to mention that Sparks does the theme song for this movie.
Well, yeah.
And I always thought that the new wave band in New Year's Evil was trying to be like a Sparks type band.
Yeah, kind of like a little hard rock punk edge,
Yeah.
with that kind of Sparks energy. 100. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we can't overlook the soundtrack selection on this, which of course is a cast member unto itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all those. Yeah, I mean, what do you think is your favorite song on the on Get Crazy?
So, I mean, I do love the Nada song, but
Yeah.
there's something about Malcolm McDowell's performance of Hot Shot that's just so
Yes.
epic. And I love the story that they tell where originally he was singing it and they're like, whoa, Malcolm, you can't sing. How about this? Do it like Shakespeare. And so he performs it in almost like an iambic pentameter, but vocalizing it. And so it has like a real kind of, I'm going to say like stadium quality delivery of this rock song. And it just
Right.
works.
Of course, all the Hoochie Coochie Man performances are terrific. And we mentioned before, but I think the Lou Reed's closing song, "My Baby Sister," I think is just so incredibly poignant and perfect. And that's that's the one that stays in my memory. At the forefront.
Perfect closer. Yeah. Just beautiful, beautiful solo guitar. Yeah. Oh, I love this movie.
Like in the way that that Keith Carradine's simple performance of "I'm Easy" in Nashville just rises to the top in that movie.
Yeah, no, it's a good one too. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this episode and talking about this great movie that I feel every year as I look at Letterboxd and IMDb and I see those view numbers go up. I know that people are discovering it more and more. New Beverly screenings help. Eli Roth helping. Alan Arkish talking about it on Trailers from Hell. Like, I think that now people are really starting to discover it. And
yeah, of course, now that it has the re-release, it is finally available in its intended form.
Absolutely. It's just a great, great movie. So again, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking to me about this. And, this episode comes out in like 2 weeks from when we're talking. So is there any other like appearances you're making podcast wise, or are you in any productions on the stage right now? I mean, you're always doing something.
I've got it's we're kind of in a little slow period right now, but I've got a number of things in post that I'll be able to talk about, and the next year should be coming out around that time. The podcast world, I did a really fun conversation with the actor and podcaster Steve Berg on his fun kind of kind of a paranormal occult themed podcast, high comma as in HI comma strangeness, high strangeness, which where we just kind of have a very fun freewheeling conversation. For more updates and such, you can follow me on Instagram at Galen Howard, all one word, and get my updates as they come there.
Yeah, Instagram's like the best place. I love your Instagram. I love your
Oh,
happy
thanks,
birthday videos and just seeing you do all the fun things that, working actors do. And I'm very, very envious of that because I'm maybe not envious of being in Los Angeles, but
right, sure, not for not for everyone. I totally get that.
There's a secret performer in me that when I see people like you do what you do, I'm like, oh man, maybe 20 years ago I would have jumped into that, but I'm cool sitting at my podcast desk now.
Well, and I'm so happy to be talking with you, man. This has been great.
Awesome. Okay, well, definitely we'll have you back on the show again soon. Everyone,
100%.
You can find the links to his Instagram in the Cult-Worthy Partners page in the show notes of this episode. Galen, I will talk to you later.
You betcha.